Hey guys, just a reminder that this podcast is for you. So please write to us with topic requests, concerns you're having, situations that you want us to go over, just to let us know you're having a good day and you enjoy the podcast. You can DM us on Instagram or email us, both of which are in the show notes, and we look forward to hearing you and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, it's Daisy.
Hey guys, it's Sophie. Welcome back. And if you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. We are so excited to be here today for another episode. And we actually are going to start this conversation today with a question that we had a listener write into us. And Daisy, do you want to go ahead and read what she said?
Yeah, so our listener wrote, hey, love the podcast. Sophie actually made a TikTok about having good/okay relationships with guys, but having that inkling that there is something more amazing out there, i.e. women. Haha. Could you talk more about that on an episode? Like having the confidence and bravery to explore that or take that leap?
Great question. It
is a good question. Maybe very thought-provoking question.
Very
made me think a lot.
Provoking question. I really love that how they wrote it into us, because this is something we've thought so much about, and it's honestly been basically our whole life the past 2 years.
Well, I think it's confusing when you're a woman and you've had relationships with men that were good and you were in love, but it's different now dating a woman, and I look back and I'm like, it's not what I had today. But there's a lot of other things that come into play that are super confusing as well. Like these weren't adult relationships, so maybe that's just like what having an emotionally stable relationship is as an adult.
Yeah,
you see what I mean? So there's so many different avenues these can play out, and I kind of want to like go through that on this episode.
For sure, there's so many different routes this could take, and yeah, so I think maybe we could just start talking about like our respective experiences dating guys and how we got to the point to take that leap to get here. I know it looks different for both of us.
Yeah, take that leap. Like that could mean totally different things, but kind of like how it got us here, but focusing on our experiences, our perspectives, like in our sexuality, who we were dating. And
yeah. Okay. So, I mean, like going back to college, like I'm going back to high school. Like I had boyfriends in college, and I honestly really did feel attracted to guys. I don't know. Like I look back now and I'm like, did I? Like, it's like, I don't know what that was.
It's really difficult. I think we are taught, even starting in middle school, that like we want like the cool football players' validity. Like we want them to like think that we're like cute and attractive, and I think so much of this can fall into that, but not to project that onto
right,
because
you want validation.
Yeah, so I wonder, like with starting in middle school, like dating certain guys, like it's middle school, so it seems so innocent, but like, do you remember any of the thoughts that you had?
No, I feel like it was almost like an automatic feeling of like I liked these guys because I had to, at least in middle school. Then going to high school, like
you felt like you had to like them?
I don't know. No, I feel like there wasn't that much thought behind it. Like when I was younger, it was just like I just liked guys because like everyone had a boyfriend. Like I never even thought. I did not even know I could like girls until I was like 25. Like I didn't know that was a thing, so it never really crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And even when I was attracted to women or had other experiences, even younger in college, I just thought that was like another thing that wasn't my identity. I thought that was just like another part of me.
I mean, I think for both of us and our experiences, like being in middle school, like you really don't have any idea. I guess you said that you were a camp counselor. Was that in middle school?
Yeah, that was like, maybe. I honestly don't know. That was like younger, freshman year of high school, maybe I was a camp counselor.
Because I know you said that you really liked your superior. And she was a
my superior.
I know it's a weird way to put it, but
yeah, I remember having like instances in which where I felt connected, or like I thought she was really cool. And I remember like my internship in college. I remember I thought my boss was really cool. I always thought these women were like I want to be around them, but I didn't know why I want to be around them.
Right. So to pause there, I want to go back and like go chronologically, like with like your experience dating guys. Middle school, not much thought about it. High school. What's your experience?
I had a boyfriend in high school who honestly at the time, like I remember those feelings. Like I loved him in that moment. And I really remember how strongly that was, like all those a lot of first experiences, and just really like I used to visualize myself marrying him like fully. Right. And I never at this point thought about dating girls at all.
This is where I like to pose the question, because I had a similar experience where you can love any human being and you can have like that like strong love. We know this because of our family experiences, us personally. And love isn't always romantic. So I guess like it's curious to me because I had a similar experience of like, was this romantic love?
Right.
Was it? I think it was.
For you, so just to go to, for you in high school, like you had a boyfriend too.
Yeah, I had like a 2 year long relationship in high school, and like I learned a lot about myself. Like it was a big.
And how did you feel about him?
Like I loved him.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, I was oh my gosh, like I was the classic like head over heels, like making all of my decisions around him, what he was doing, where he was going. But I also like to bring up another factor of like our relationship because like why did I like him? I liked like the intellectual connection we had.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Like I really felt like stimulated emotionally and intellectually. So that's what I initially liked. So
yeah. Attraction's not linear.
No, it's see, like we're just like scratching the surface, and it's so complex, and I still don't even know what all of this means.
Well, going back to like high school, when you're so young, and I think your brain's so malleable, and you haven't really felt that love with anyone, really. When you feel anything that's kind of exhilarating, I think you're gonna tend to err on the side of labeling that as love. Like I remember feeling this kind of like dopamine feeling of excitement, and that to me in the moment I categorize that as love for this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, one can argue that like that feelings were valid and like everything you feel at a certain age is valid no matter what. But I think just on the realm of like the attractiveness, I think it really was not that deep in hindsight. But in the moment, those feelings felt very, very deep.
Well, that's why I noted like with my high school boyfriend, I think there's a difference. There's different types of love and there's different types of connection. And a lot of the times you can have like an emotional and an intellectual connection with someone that feels so strong that like you like are obsessed with that connection you have. And that's considered a friendship right there if you don't have like the romantic aspect of it.
Right.
So I think that we in this society like to think like only these like really intimate personal relationships can be between our partner, like who we're dating, who we're married to, whatever it is. And that's just the furthest thing from the truth, which I think that it can be kind of hard to overcome that, you know, the strongest connection on every level of what I need is met by my partner. Like that's not always the case.
Right.
It's, you know, ones that are most important to you, they should be, or like ones that should be met by your partner should be. Like everyone makes up their own rules, but just because like there were like strong feelings of, you know, things as like I think the attraction aspect of it, like that you said that wasn't super strong, and like that was something that was kind of like in the back of my mind as well. Like it was further back.
So I guess the question is, what it like to you in high school, like, or to me, like attraction was. It's almost as if I didn't have like a real awareness of what attraction meant. It more so meant that I wanted to be around that person. It wasn't like I was like almost like sexually attracted to that person.
Right.
It was just like I want like physically like attracted. I don't know.
I never no matter who it was, guy or girl, I never sought out anyone based off of how they looked. Like now that like I understand my sexuality more, like I find girls very attractive. The ways that I don't find guys as attractive, like
yeah,
I have like a desire, more of an appeal towards women, like physically attractively. So that's something that I wasn't aware of in hindsight. But now I am more aware of that. So
same with me. Like I feel like, well, looking back in college, I didn't really think about it that much. I wasn't that aware of it. I mean, there were some experiences there, but like I didn't. It was like I had a boyfriend there who I kind of, I guess, in love with. I don't know. Like I like really enjoyed his company. And fast forward, it's like in hindsight, what really was that? But I mean, I don't want to get too repetitive here. The point is like we've had these relationships with guys, and in those moments, I felt very connected to them. But in hindsight now, I'm like, what did I really feel?
It's a good question. And I don't even know if it's important to categoririse like this is what I am and this is what I am now, so this is how I was. I think like we all like are gonna evolve. We are all gonna change throughout our lives and become more of who we are if like, you know, we're growing and changing. So I don't know if what the way we're going about this is like the right way to do it in terms
what do you mean
of like I you know like maybe I don't have to figure out like was I in love with my high school boyfriend? Like, I know I was, but like, what does that mean for me now? Like, I don't really know.
Right.
Does it really matter?
Well, this is what we were talking about the other day. Like, we try so hard to kind of come up with the answer of like, how did I feel then? It doesn't make sense. Like, how can I love you, Daisy, if I love a guy when I was 24? And I think we want that answer to kind of validate and confirm how we're feeling right now, but recognizing that some things there's not going to be an answer to. Like, some things are just exist in and of itself, and we don't have to go back to when we were certain ages and dissect those feelings. We could just focus on how we feel now to understand how we feel now.
Right.
But naturally, you do want to understand how you felt in the past.
Well, the way that I see it is I think that if I look back through a realm of like, it's not even like relationship oriented, because I had no idea that I liked women, but I think that I can pull apart different pieces that are totally aside from relationship and be like, okay, like I definitely liked women. I know that's the fact. That didn't just happen when I was 25. Like that.
Yeah.
That was something that was always there.
Or the capacity in which.
The capacity was always there. But
just to say, I think that the capacity to, in this topic, it's like someone of the same sex, but the capacity to have a new perspective or to really explore a part of you is always there, and it could be so deeply hidden in your subconscious that you don't know. Like, for us, we didn't know we had this like attractiveness, but that's because maybe we didn't allow ourselves to, or you don't know you like something when you're not allowing yourself to.
The mind is so powerful.
The mind is so powerful.
The mind is blocking.
Well, the mind is literally all you have.
So much. Yeah.
The mind is you, right? Like, that's all you have. So of course it's powerful.
Well, I'm wondering for you, I know how this was for me, but for you, do you feel like when you were in these different relationships with men that you felt something was lacking, or do you have any words to express like how that may have been for you if you did notice anything was lacking?
So this is where it gets really tricky, because like, so my most recent relationship, like 4 years ago, it was very, very deep and nothing was lacking, but the relationship did not get to the point where my relationship is with you now. So it's very hard for me to, like, it wasn't a real relationship in the sense that like we really both liked each other. We were very attracted to each other. We're basically like on and off for like a few years. And I, at that point, was not attracted to women at all. I didn't want a girlfriend. I never thought about it. But I don't know. It's so hard to compare it, because now we're like 2 years into dating. We are so stable. In hindsight, like, it's like, I don't know how I felt compared to this, because they're two different types of relationships. Right. And that's what makes it so confusing.
They're different.
Like, they're not apples and oranges.
You honestly can't compare them. They're inherently so different.
Yeah.
So to you feel like nothing was lacking in this particular relationship.
Nothing was lacking, but I still had this inkling of like, so I started to realize like I'm attracted to that woman in the street. I kept slowly started to develop more like this attraction.
Even while you were in this relationship or whatever you call it, you were like thinking of other women, or you weren't?
No. Okay, no. So no, I wasn't when I was in the relationship, and then like that ended probably when I was like fully ended, I guess, like when I was 24, I guess. And that's when I was like single, fully single, and I was just like, you know what? I have this inkling of I'm attracted to women. And that's kind of where it all started, like really started.
So something that I want to make a point of that we brought up the other day, because we were saying like this is both of our like first like committed real relationship as adults, you and I, and we happen to both be women. So it's our first adult relationship that's that is committed is with another woman. And I think the more that we are in a relationship, the more that we continue this relationship, the further away we are from any relationships that we've had with guys.
Yeah.
So maybe we can't figure out like if we're attracted to guys. Maybe our preference is to be attracted to women. I think that preference is different than like actual attraction. But I think we kind of forget more as well as we have larger, great, full experiences with each other who are both women. It's harder to grasp the idea of being in a relationship with a guy.
Well, it's almost like it's preference in flux. Like, it's like now that I've dated you for so long, and right now I don't want to date a guy. I have no interest in dating a guy.
Is it in flux? That's a good question. Maybe when you are bisexual, it is.
And it's like, am I bisexual? I don't know. Like, yeah. It almost depends on like what ovulation cycle I'm in. You know what I mean? Like, it's like how I'm feeling that day. My attractiveness to someone I see on the street or someone like I interact with. And it's coming to the point now where it's not even about the attractiveness anymore. It's that I love you so much that it doesn't matter who it is. I don't want anyone.
So navigating your sexuality while in a relationship is interesting.
It is, because you're biased.
Both of us, I mean, I realized I may like girls, and then I met you, and then here we are. And you weren't really out with like your family or like to a lot of your friends until we started dating. So in a lot of the ways, like we kind of came out together.
Yeah.
So we haven't really been single in that. So I wonder how that impacts your experience and your point of view on sexuality.
Well, it's like if we broke up, like, and we were both single, now that we have both dated women and we went back to the dating field, I think I would, if I went on a dating app, I would not be putting my settings on guys, because now I have this experience with a woman that is so amazing. Why would I ever go back to what was basically subpar? And I think this takes us to the initial question of like, how, when you are content enough, and we were both kind of happy enough where you could live this life and like keep dating guys, how do you get to the point where you're gonna like put yourself in that position to take their risk when we both can be aware to know that it's not gonna be easy? Like, go even for you.
Well, our experiences are so different on this.
But don't you think that you had? Didn't you generally think, and you had the awareness that like being in a same-sex relationship is inherently different than being in a straight relationship, and it's gonna come?
I didn't put any thought into any of this. I mean, I had a high school boyfriend, and then like I kind of struggled with guys. Like I didn't feel like I had relationships with guys. Like I didn't really have strong romantic relationships. I had nothing. It was college, and then it was right out of high school or right out of college for me. These periods of leading up to realizing like, oh, I want to date women. So for me, it was not clear that, or let me back up. It was just, I didn't really have a relationship with men. You were a big dater. I think it's important to point that out. Like you dated like a serial dater.
Hey, relax.
Yeah, well, you had,
So honestly, maybe this is a question more for me, because I think.
Well, I still want to share like my thoughts on it, but I can ask you questions first. So, well, I guess the point I was getting at, well, I don't know where the point was.
Well, I guess I'm saying you're right. Like I feel like for you, we have very different like coming into this experiences. For me, I actively contemplated whether I want to live this life. I like really, it was a very thought and aware thinking process I had where I'm like, I have this life right now. Do I want to go to the next level?
Interesting.
For you, you didn't really think about it. You kind of just did it.
Yeah, because for me, I wasn't dating anyone. I was just like, oh, I think I like women because I think this is like a core piece of who I am. So
wow, it was so seamless for you.
No, like we went back and looked at photos, and I was reading Untamed. This was coming off of the pandemic, and I read this particular chapter from Glennon Doyle talking about like how society really wants to tell us how to live, and that's really silly because we know ourselves better than anyone else, and we should listen to ourselves even if it seems scary. And I read that book in the park. I was like over on the East River in the East Village in New York City. I came home and I think I like meditated for like 10 minutes because I was like, I felt overwhelmed. And then I like went to sleep. And then I woke up the next day and I swear to God, I downloaded the app and I started talking to you. Like it was just like that.
It's hilarious.
So I didn't even like contemplate this is what this life would mean. Like that makes sense because I didn't have that barrier with my parents. Like there was never hindrance from them of like, you can't do this, where that wasn't the case for you. So your parents actively told you can't be gay.
Compared to me, where I have like freaking like 25 journal entries on my phone with like charts contemplating like a freaking Venn diagram of what my life's gonna be like.
I had zero idea my entire life of this. You were somewhat aware, but what was holding you back was being told that you weren't
I remember
allowed.
I used to like ask my parents, so what would you do if your kid was gay? Like I used to ask them this, but I had and these are like the subconscious thoughts so deep down, surfacing on this conscious level, but me not being able to see whether they're rooted in.
Right.
But you don't just randomly think things.
No, you don't.
Well, you do, but a lot of things have more meaning than you think.
Exactly. I mean, this definitely does.
You don't just have random like thoughts of like you're not it's not just your friend if you're attracted to her. Like you like her.
Right. It's if you're thinking like, am I gay? Like you probably are. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, going back to like where I was at that point, so this was probably when I was like 24, and I was probably like a process of over like 2 years where I started going on dating apps and I would like delete them because I was so anxious. And the first phase of this was me being very embarrassed about like, ew, like I don't want to kiss a girl. Like that's so gross. Like I truly was grossed out by like the fact of me wanting to kiss a girl.
Wow.
And I remember like going on these apps and waking up the next, like when I was drunk and then waking up the next morning and like being like, oh, like this, like, ew, like I like
Wow.
guys. I don't want this. And that's how I actually felt. And
You're smiling, but that's really sad.
yeah, I'm smiling because I guess I think of it as kind of like, it wasn't, I guess I don't know if I feel like it was sad in that moment because I didn't feel like I was, I don't know, I wasn't aware of it.
I think it's sad because I clearly see like why you felt this disgust is because you were told like that's wrong.
Yeah, wow. And I had no idea that's why I was feeling that.
And like in hindsight, looking back, it's like that's why you had a harder time coming to terms with this. Like you actively like plotted and thought like this is how I want my life to be.
The brain is so weird. Wow.
It protects you.
It protects you. And that's, I guess,
Yeah.
what was happening. It's like these little inklings would come out. I would download the apps and then delete it, download, delete it. And then I think finally what happened is like it kind of came to a thing where it was a process of happening when I used to drink and like at night. And then finally it would be like a thing of like, okay, let me just download it again and let me go on a date. And then I went on a date and I was like, whoa. And then I was like, I don't like this. Delete, back to dating guys. And
So you would only make the decision to go on a date like when you'd been drinking?
no, I think like it would happen, like I would have that forethought the night before, like I'd go out and be like, and I'd journal or something and I'd read that journal the next day and I'd be like, I think I was so attracted to that girl, but I don't know. Like it was slowly uncovering these thoughts that I think came out when I was drunk because I
Wow.
had my guard down.
Wow. You put so much thought into this.
You don't understand how much thought I put
I
into
don't think I'm even aware of how
You
much
don't understand.
thought you
I-
put into this and how many journal entries are on your phone.
I did like I conducted like a PhD on this, literally. But so then like I think what would slowly happen is that I was going on the dates, but I was living in fear, but I didn't know I was living in fear, and because I just wasn't aware.
Yeah, you started to peel back the layers, but it took you dating me to pull back like the massive layer of realizing like confronting that I do like this is what I want.
Well, I think you can kind of like group together my experiences from age like 23 to 25, whatever it is, of going on dating apps in New York City, dating women. That was all kind of the realm of like exploration, but it wasn't until we got into a relationship where this really like fast forward, it got really fast, and I was like, I have to make it. Then I was forced I have to make this decision because when you're doing this, when you're single, you can do this as long as you want. You have no pressure on you, and your life's pretty good. You know you're okay dating guys. You're not really lacking anything. And I think when you're not lacking something, you're kind of at that level of being content. So you don't understand what it could be to have more. But once
You said when you're not lacking something?
when you feel like you're not lacking, you're not aware of it. So when I'm dating guys and I feel like I still am getting those dopamine hits and I'm still feeling really good from dating guys, I know I have this curiosity for a woman, but it's not to the point where I've really experienced a woman to know what I would be missing if I didn't have it. So there was really no detriment of staying in this normal life I was staying in because to me, the other one was too scary and I couldn't comprehend that the benefit of it would be worth taking that risk yet.
Wow. But you still went after it.
Subconsciously, I feel like I kept doing it. Right. And then I remember it was the summer of 2020 and it was like, I remember journaling, I kept going back and forth like, I don't know. I feel like maybe I want to have a girlfriend and see what it's like. I just want to, and I was set on this idea. I'm laughing now because 2 years later, here we are. You like move into my apartment, like see what it's like, all that. Like,
Well, I remember
feel
like
liked it.
after we got on like 2 dates, like you texted me and you're like, hey, like I just want to let you know that I don't want to sound rude, but I really want to proceed with this if you want a relationship.
I forgot I said that.
So you were just,
I was putting my foot down.
yeah, but just going back to what you were saying, like you kind of like set in stone, like, all right, I'm going to date a girl.
It's really funny because it actually did happen like that. And I used to be someone who's really believing in like law of attraction. I don't really believe in that as much, but I like honestly like journaled that like I was going to have a girlfriend. And I actually journaled specifically that like I wanted to have this type of relationship. I was going to have an open communication relationship where we understood each other, we worked on each other, and that it's very weird that is the relationship I have now.
I mean, it wasn't imminently apparent.
Yeah, it was not.
Took about a year.
It took like up until like yesterday, but
Relax.
just kidding. But then that, and then yeah, so that happened, and then before I knew it, I was like, okay, I actively told myself, still kind of like 60% acknowledging it, not fully yet, of like I'm gonna try this thing out. Basically, I'm gonna move to the city and see if I like it, not knowing you're gonna live there yet.
And you even subconsciously were like, I want to go to Brooklyn. I think there was just so many like levels of your subconscious.
Well, I used to associate Brooklyn as this like different place than Manhattan, because people here were more like open-minded, and I think deep down I thought I could be more comfortable here in my sexuality. And just going back to when I used to go on dates with women between those ages of like 23, 25, whatever, I would be so scared if anyone saw me. So kind of feeling like
I mean, early in our relationship, you were afraid to see people.
Yeah. Now it's like I literally want people to see us.
Yeah, you've made a ton of progress, but
yeah, so then like getting to the point of like us entering our relationship is when that question really gets posed of, you know, what do I want to do now? What is it really worth it?
Wait, are you saying like now, do you feel like content in our relationship? Like, do you feel like there's an inkling, like the reverse of her question?
No, I'm saying in the beginning of it. Like in the beginning of it, like 4 or 5 months in, when I'm like, whoa, I like this girl. This is going really well. But oh my God, I have to tell my parents. My parents don't know yet. Then,
well, there was a ton of doubts. There was like and we don't have to go down this whole thing because I want to stay on topic, but
it is relevant to talk about because that is where the internalized homophobia kicked in to make me think that maybe I should just didn't marry a guy. Like I kind of regressed back into that.
You did.
4 months into dating.
Oh yeah, you regressed heavily into
there's
that.
a lot of thoughts of like maybe I should just date a guy.
Right.
Maybe I should just marry a guy because I would envision that life, and it looked so clear and amazing. Having 2 kids with a man, a husband, like all of us, that life to me was so attractive.
You were in like such a state of fear and like trauma with your parents having told you like, we don't approve of this, that of course you're going to cling to that idea of what's going to solve everything. All of this like rupture that's happening in your family, like that's going to become so much more appealing. And that was really hard to experience early in our relationship. So there was a lot of backtracking, a ton of backtracking. You have to think about it, like in the early parts of relationship, like you're overcoming the honeymoon phase, like you're getting to know each other, like you're seeing each other's faults. And right when you start to see each other's faults, you're also being told by your parents that we don't accept this. So you start fantasizing about like how your life could be fixed by marrying a man.
Yeah, to me, it was a fix.
Yeah.
So, but I wasn't aware that it was a fix. To me, again, I just saw this. I was like, well, wait, I do like guys. Like, I do like my ex. I do think I could marry a guy. So why would I take this risk and live this life this was really the main question. Why would I take this risk and live this life that would put me in this position of fear and put me in this position of pain and not having my parents talk to me and potentially not having my parents go to my wedding if I could just go be happy elsewhere? Why would I ever do that?
Right.
Why would anyone subject themselves to having such a shitty experience when they can just reach that same level of happiness elsewhere? Yeah. That was really the question that this all came down to.
I mean, that's ultra confusing because you're almost in fight. You're almost like in survival mode at that point.
It's like fight or flight.
Thinking. You're not thinking about like, what's the most amazing life that I can live that's going to be most true to who I am and aligned with what I want. You're thinking like, how do I get my needs met from my family?
Interesting. Yeah, it kind of was like fight or flight mode of like, I need my needs met. I don't care about like that true love I could experience. This is just about like meeting the subpar life. If I could be content, so be it. Why take this stupid risk and do all this stuff?
If I could say something to like that like point in our relationship 4 months in when this was happening with you, if I could speak to that Sophie now, I would say like the reason why you don't live that subpar life is because you can live this like amazing life that you didn't realize was possible and you don't yet realize is possible
at that time.
Yeah, like you were not able to see the future with that and the possibilities with that because you hadn't yet experienced them. And that was all making you get forced into this mindset of like, I can deal with this. This is going to like be okay for me. And I can get on and like avoid all of this rupture with my family.
Right. Because I had no idea that these thoughts I were having were really just fear thoughts and really just me fantasizing this life that would kind of solve this problem. And me thinking that like, because I didn't know how amazing a relationship could be, because in the beginning phases, I was really like succumbed to the internalized homophobia. I was
up for a lot. I had to prove not only like our relationship was worth it, I had to prove that like it was worth going through all of this with your parents.
Right. I mean, I guess
I was like under a fire.
Yeah, I guess in hindsight you were. I don't know if you felt that way. Did you feel that way? Like you had to prove something to me? because I had so much
I
doubt.
feel like I felt like I've like felt that my entire life, so it didn't feel like anything new to me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you did give me that plan at that time.
that was my way of like trying to save the relationship.
That was a funny fight, but not that funny actually. But yeah, I mean, there was so much going on at this phase, and I just did not. I really, there was times where I'd sit up and I'd be like, I'd text you that night when I was home. I was like, Daisy, I can't live this life. I can't get married to a woman. I can't have kids with a woman. I'm not going to live this life.
Yeah.
And I remember that really hurt you that I said that.
I mean, I think someone from like my perspective of like, I just realized my sexuality. This is my first experience with a girl ever. And I haven't even thought about these things because I'm so early on in this. And like, I think with the internalized homophobia and with what you were happening with your parents, it forced you to think about the future and all of these things because you had already mapped it out, journaled about it 18 times about like, can I accept this? And for me, it was really hard to hear from you and really heartbreaking to hear that you weren't willing to live this life with me. And in no point in time, I think, would any relationship be thinking about this stuff at the point that we were, but it was larger than that because it was saying like, you couldn't embrace me for who I was because this is what I wanted, but you were too ashamed to live this life with me. And that's what I think was breaking my heart and why I was so upset. It was less about us. It was more that you were rejecting what I wanted because you weren't willing to live that life.
And that, I think, is exactly why I did decide to take the leap, because I saw how much I loved you, and that, for the first time ever, it was not something I had to like visualize in my head. It was something I felt, and I felt that connection to you, and that to me now at this point, I was like, whoa, I have never felt this way before. And the second that you fully can comprehend that you've never felt this way before, and you could start imagining your life without it, it's like this process. I was like, why would I? No, like. It all of a sudden it's like the fear, the pain, like the fear of like the awful life starts getting like matching up to the amazingness of the relationship, and before you know it, the amazingness is like going higher and higher and higher, outweighing it to the point where just like I could not imagine that no matter what it took, it was not worth it for me to give this up over fear. And that's something that I think I realized by experiencing the beauty that we shared. And honestly, if I was single, I don't think I would have got to that point, which is why it happened when I was dating you, because there was no push. I didn't have to give anything up.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, this is like a huge feat on your end. So not to like say like it was wrong of you to have these feelings. Certainly not. Like, you were up against a lot of internalized homophobia that was like almost like debilitating for you. And while like it kept pushing you down, like you continued to like get back up and move forward with it. And I think obviously having the support of our relationship helped you do that. And, you know, support of like all of your friends and sister and everyone who wanted you to live this life and were so happy for you. And you're inside of you, like what you really wanted, like you really came through, and we are here today.
I also think like just kind of like breaking it down, so much of the reason why I didn't want to take that risk is fear of judgment. And I think kind of breaking out, like when I started getting acceptance from friends slowly and my sister, it kind of like tore down this fear, because I realized that most people don't care. Most people around you are not going to actually care.
Yeah, no, they don't. And like that was the difference between me and you, is that you had to debunk all of these things, all of these internalized narratives that you'd created because you'd been told your entire life.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that like there's so many different people out there, but if you are somebody, and I think a lot of people are, who are struggling with narratives that they've created, this is going to be a harder process.
Definitely,
because you have to destroy those narratives. So it's like, how do you okay, so let's talk about like, how do you overcome such deeply rooted narratives that are telling you that, number one, your life's gonna suck if you take this risk, you might lose family, you might lose friends, you're gonna be maybe faced with judgment. How do you like separate that?
Yeah. And I mean, it's something that I think it's hard to do alone. Like you certainly need the support of others, and like you need representation from others. You need to be told that this is okay. in a loving way. I think what breaks through all of these things is that feeling of love, which is exactly what you said made you break through to choose you want to be with me, was when you were able to acknowledge that you've never felt this way with anyone else.
Yeah.
And I do want to get back to my question of, in the reverse of that initial question we asked at the beginning of the show was like, do you feel like there's any sort of inkling in your relationship now that it's not satisfying? Like, do you think like, oh, like, is this something that could, like, something missing?
It's funny. It's like my girlfriend's asking.
I know,
this.
right?
On a larger level, I'm going to answer on a larger level because I think that's what's relevant here. I think that no, like it's now that I've experienced the pain, now that I've experienced everything, I ripped that Band-Aid off. I dealt with my parents' rejection and like I've dealt with it all. There's literally nothing to lose anymore. Why? So if that's the case, I'm so attracted to you and I'm so in love with you and I love our relationship. Why would I have no even thought anymore about wanting to go date a guy.
Right.
I have no thought about it.
Right. That was something that was early on that you did, but now you don't.
Yeah. And it never even crosses my mind anymore. So if I was talking to myself 2 years ago, I would have told myself that you have to give yourself that chance to listen to like your heart, and not to sound cheesy, but really listen to your heart and to do that thing that you're really trying to do, because you're not going to know until you take that risk how you truly feel. And when you come out the other end of it, you're likely going to feel in a way that you didn't feel before that, like I do right now, and you're going to have completely different mindset and stance on your position even in this world now, to the point where I'm like making a podcast because I'm so happy with our relationship that I want other people to be able to experience this and not be held down by their weighted beliefs and narratives.
Right. And I feel like to fully answer that question of like, did I feel like there was like an inkling out there and I was like in a relationship with guys? I almost feel like it was less about the relationship aspect. And I think for me, like I felt like overall in general, like something was missing in my life. I always felt like I was different and something was missing, but I couldn't understand what that was.
What do you mean? Like you just felt like something was missing?
I felt like empty in a way. I felt like there was like, I felt like I wanted, like part of it was I felt disconnected from myself for like a large portion of my life, and what sexuality, aside from having an amazing relationship, did for me, like coming to terms with it, is it helped me come into myself and fully know who I am.
That's really important to talk about.
And that's really what sexuality means to me. Like, aside from having like a healthy, beautiful relationship that I love, it's like helped me like feel confident in who I am. And it allowed me to have growth that was so important to me. Or it took me growth also to help me understand my sexuality. And to me, they go hand in hand, because I think as you peel back layers of, so things have happened, what society tells you to be, what your parents tell you to be, your experience as a kid, as you pull those things back, if you do like women, or if you are, you know, if you feel like queer in any way, like that's going to arise if you are connecting deeper with yourself. And that's why I think like the beauty about it is that you become more free to just be who you are.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's such a pivotal part of this entire journey. And I want to hear you talk about more of that. Like, how do you feel that, going back to when I first met you, and you're kind of like, you were more in your head a lot, you weren't as confident, now you're just like rocking it at your job, doing these great things, having this whole new world view. How would you like describe the experience of like coming into this relationship, coming into this identity, and how do you parallel that next to your growth as a human being? Like your growth just as Daisy in this world.
I mean, part of it is I was in a relationship with you, and you saw me. So part of it was like being in the relationship with the right person, but also that relationship had the capacity to make me feel something that I'd never felt before. And it's always that feeling of love that drives you and drives you forward. And I think in our relationship, like, I think being in a relationship, you can learn a ton about yourself. So I think that really helped me know exactly what I need to work on, and in a loving and caring way. Like, you helped me, push me forward, help me, work on these things that were very hard for me to work through. And that some may say like that is just a relationship, that's just being in a relationship. But I don't know, it's also conjoined with coming into your sexuality and the things that we went through with in the early stages and still are dealing with your parents being unaccepting.
Well, I was gonna ask you, like, say you like were straight and you were having these same confidence issues and you started dating like your boyfriend. I'm sure you'd probably see this. I'm curious, like,
interesting. Yeah.
Is when you're queer, when you're figuring out your identity, I don't know, because identity, it doesn't really, it's not all about sexuality here. Like, it's about,
no, it's not.
This is so deep. Like, this confidence and stuff is so much more deeper than your sexuality.
It is.
But for some reason, they're intertwined.
They are.
I think on the larger level of not of fear of judgment, and just not wanting to live true to you. Like, those things are so overarching to anyone.
They are.
No matter what community or who you identify in, that when you rip the Band-Aid off one part, you're going to domino effect. Bam,
right.
Bam, bam. Everything is going to unfold that you're going to start living that life you really want to live.
Well, I think that's like the beauty of the queer community, is that you can embrace every part of you. And almost outside of that, in today's society doesn't want you to embrace every part of who you are.
Definitely not.
It's really hard to do that. So I think, like,
we were very suppressed in society and in every way.
Yeah, it tries to box you, and I think that's really damaging to people. If you're not this, then you're a failure. So I think what you said was very, very helpful in helping me realize that it was more than just sexuality for me. It was coming into myself, being a part of this community, and took me a while to even really fully embrace it. But now that I'm able to, yeah, it does. It's
funny because it's like, what community? We don't even have that many gay friends.
Yeah,
this community that we've created. No, but I know what you mean.
It's an identity, though.
No, it's more of I guess identity than over community.
Okay, maybe that's the better word to describe it.
Yeah.
But it just really does cultivate a space for you to love yourself.
I think that when you give yourself permission in one area of your life to start living true to yourself, you start giving yourself permission in all other areas.
Yes.
I think that's what it is. It's like a permission thing.
It is. That's
because
amazing.
You stop living based on this narrative you created and you start living for now and who you are now.
Right.
And that's a very powerful thing. And I think that, like, so much of life, we're just living based on narratives.
Right. Right.
Like, you were when I met you, you were Daisy based on these ideals you told you about yourself, that you were not as smart as you thought you were, you weren't as whatever.
Right.
And you've just destroyed those.
Yeah, they really don't exist anymore.
Those don't exist. You used to be so anxious and insecure, and that was just you clinging to that identity. And now that you found a new identity, you're really rather found who you are.
Right.
You're not going to cling to that anymore. That's so powerful.
Right. It's so interesting.
It's so hard for you to even see it, probably.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of hard for me to talk on.
It's really hard I think one of the weirdest things about growth is that it's so hard to see your growth, because you can't look in the mirror and see it. You have to do things like talking about it and like having these conversations to really understand, like, whoa, like when I met you, you were like nowhere where you are now. And when you met me, I was like scared to see you in public and hold your hand in public.
Right.
And
well, I think that is also like the beauty of relationships in general. And if you want to go a little bit more specific, like queer relationships, is that you don't hold the expectation to fit in any of society's boxes up to each other. I would never do that to you.
We have no expectations anymore.
And I think it's so much easier to do that within a queer relationship. Not for everyone, clearly. I just think that everyone in society, like, it's really hard to detangle yourself from like these constructs and these boxes. And it's easy to have like your partner like say like, I need this of you and I want this of you and this, and like that's not fair. I would never want to do that to you, because I know you know what you need. I know you know what you want, and I want to embrace that. I don't want to tell you what you need to be.
Well, we have not put each other into boxes in our relationships, and because I don't put you into a box, that gives you the freedom to embrace your identity in other ways. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that so many relationships have tendencies that like you have a role, I have a role, and quite frankly, we don't have roles. We just literally, like, it's day by day. Whoever needs to be met that day, fine.
Yeah.
And I think that like giving people you're dating the freedom and the space to thrive and grow into that
whatever it may be.
Wildflower if they are. They grow into, seriously, like grow into that flower that they need to grow into, and like what in the space that they need to. And that's why we picked the phrase wildflowers for our podcast, is because wildflowers grow outside of a pot. They grow unpotted. They grow in the wilderness, free to be whoever they want, and with no pressure to conform to that strict little identity.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why they thrive and they're so beautiful. And that's exactly what we're talking about here.
And they don't need to be watered every day at 5 o'clock. They
don't
figure out how to survive in other ways. And they adapt and they move on and they grow and they become even more beautiful and different.
It makes me think when we were in Joshua Tree and like we were reading about the how the plants survive in the desert, and the reason they survive is because they don't resist the desert heat. They just adapt to the desert heat, and therefore they survive without water. When if you like just showing how like plants and nature give us such a like admirable example for how we should act in the world.
I mean, that you can't resist who you truly are. Like, you can't be afraid of who you are. And I think society almost teaches us to be afraid of who we are, because inherently a lot of us are going to be different than what society tells us what we should be. And we should never fear ourselves. This is the perspective in the life that we're living.
Yeah, I mean, you are the only thing that you, like, on a larger scale, we are all experiencing our life through our own perception. There's nothing else in your life besides you. So there's nothing to fear.
Yeah, it's true. It really is.
And you have to, like, just like, I feel like another answer to the question of what makes it worth the risk is realizing that other people's judgments do not matter. Other people's fears are not going to be with you in 20, 30 years or even tomorrow. Like, you have to live your life based on what you want. Your parents are going to die. They will not be here in the future. If you're living for them, well, okay, I understand that. But there's going to come to a point where you're going to regret the last 20 years of your life and realize, like, shit, I just spent this whole time living with people who are, like, are not with me right now. You know what I mean? I just think that, like,
well, it's easy to start creating narratives of why you're not leaning into who you really want to be. It's easy to, like, get comfortable and say, oh, I could never do that. I could never do this. When in reality,
you can.
Everyone can do whatever they want. They just have to mentally allow themselves to get there and allow themselves to do that. I mean, the conversation that we had about who I was before our relationship, like, I was insecure. If you told me, like, I was going to have a podcast, I literally wouldn't believe you, because I didn't think that was possible for me at the time. I didn't think that I was capable of that. And that just, like, I'm saying that because that just shows you in any frame of sexuality or whatever it may be, whatever you're telling yourself, it can be changed. And it will be changed if you want it to be.
Yeah, you never would have, you, like, used to think you were, like, yeah. Wait, just cut that. But our brains are so malleable that, yes, you can become anything you want to become. You have to just give yourself the permission to, and you have to give yourself the permission to step outside that box.
And that's not to say, like, oh, like, thank you this and you will become this. Like, that's definitely not what we're saying. It's like, oh, this
no
stuff
vision
takes,
boards here.
This stuff takes, like, a lot of work and a lot of support from people who love you or someone who supports you. Like, it's really hard stuff, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, and the pain that you probably will experience if you were frame that as growth, it's not as scary anymore, because you realize that, like, getting through that pain is going to get you to that place where you're a lot happier than you ever were had you not taken that leap.
Yeah, I mean, growth is never comfortable. It always feels really bad. And then you come out on the other side and, you know, you have perspective.
But comfortability is so bad is what we're really learning here. Is, like, comfortability is so dangerous.
It is. It's very dangerous.
Because what is comfortability? Safe. Great. I'm safe.
It creates misery.
Is that the kind of life you want to live where you never took that risk? No.
And I think for us to have this perspective, like, at a pretty young age, it's like, if you don't think about these things now, when you're 60, 70, 80, 90, you're definitely going to think about these things and have regrets.
If you even live to that age,
it's hard to have these thoughts now. It definitely is. But I think it only gets harder as you get older.
I truly urge anybody who, I mean, no matter what age you are, it's just like, you have to question these thoughts and you have to really take these risks, because it's going to come to a point where your brain is going to get really stuck into these habits, and it's going to be harder and harder to do that. And it's just like, it's just not worth it. You have one life on this planet. You have one life in this human experience. You need to live the way that's going to light your heart up and the way it's going to really make you, like, every night when I go to bed, I feel so amazing because I'm with you. And I would not trade anything in the world.
Yeah, but it wasn't easy to get here. You said you almost weren't able to get here.
I was not almost able to get here. I almost wanted to break up so many times.
And there's moments where I felt awful because it felt awful to hear the things that you said to me because that's what had been said to you. And like, that was really very painful. But I look at where we are now and like, it feels, you know what? That's an added perspective of like gratefulness of feeling where I am now because it was really hard at points, like really, really miserable.
Yeah.
just thinking back on it.
But it's just like you're building the foundation. Those moments of pain and hardship are really you just setting the foundation for a lifetime of happiness. And so it's like a matter of you taking 1 or 2 years to really peel back the layers and do what you need to do to have the rest of your life created for you to live and go forward this way, or you stay stuck in that way out of fear of feeling it when it really would have been so much better the
regardless
other way
you're always going to feel, everyone's going to feel negative emotions. We all feel them at times, just a matter of like when you feel them and when you allow yourself to feel them, and if you're setting yourself up to always feel them constantly or to feel them in periods of time and then have periods of like bliss and relief based off the decisions you make.
Yeah. Wow, this has been a good chat.
This went very long, so thank you so much for your question. That was probably the most easy podcast conversation we've ever had.
Yeah, I'm so thankful to the listener who wrote in, and we're never gonna say who it is because everything's anonymous here. And if we ever get a message from you, which we hope you do, we're just gonna talk about it. And that clearly, we got another question. We'll probably do it next week, but I think that I'm just so grateful that we got a question. It was so fun to talk about it.
Yeah, it was also just like really great to have someone else's question come in because it's outside of our world. So it just like creates good conversation for you guys.
Well, that was really great. I really hope you guys enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, just a reminder, you can find new podcasts here every other Tuesday.
And as always, guys, please review, write us in, and we're just so excited. This is episode 5. We're flying along already. We have so many more topics, so many more things we want to talk about, but we want your help. So we look forward to hearing from you guys, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. And until that, enjoy your week and keep your head up.
See you in 2 weeks.